Welcome back. This is part 4. We just got done taking a look at ways for you to assess your students' writing this week by collecting an authentic writing sample and using a structured tool like a rubric or checklist to score it. Now, another way to take a look at the writing and spelling processes possessed by the student is to observe their students' reading. You're not going to do this specifically this week, but you can refer back to evidence you've already gathered regarding your students' reading abilities. So students' reading and spelling are related, but not mirror images. The processes differ slightly. In reading, words can be recognized with many textual supports, so reading ability often lies ahead of spelling ability. Spelling is a conservative measure, and what that means that if a student can spell a word, then we know they can read the word, but the reverse is not true. Just because they can read the word doesn't mean they can spell the word. But typically, if they're able to spell a word, then we can assume that they can also read that word. So you can conduct a running record and observe for miscues. And if they're miscuing on a word, typically they're not going to be able to write that word if they're not able to recognize it in print. So if a student substitutes rabbit for bunny, you know they are using contextual cues but not sound symbol correspondences. They may be in that early letter name alphabetic stage. So let's talk about spelling inventories, which are typically a structured informal assessment. A structure or a informal classroom-based assessment for spelling would just be to look at spelling in classroom work and see how they do. So a spelling inventory, you should conduct a regular spelling inventory about 3 times a year, and more than that won't show significant progress. They consist of lists of words specifically chosen to represent a variety of spelling features or patterns at increasing levels of difficulty. You want to examine the results of the assessment for the 3 functional levels. What can students do correctly? That would be their independent level. What students use but confuse, that would be their instructional level, where you would want to provide instruction at. And then what is absent in student spelling, that would be their frustration level, where spelling concepts are too difficult. So just like you can use a running record with a comprehension measure to determine the student's reading level, you can also use a spelling inventory to determine their spelling level, their independent level, instructional level, and frustrational level. So the Words Their Way spelling inventory is required. This week there are 3 different versions on Titanium. The first one is the primary spelling inventory, which is ideal for kinder through 3rd grade. For kinder, you can just give the first 5 words. For 1st grade, which my student was, you would just give the first 15 words. And then for grades 2 and 3, you can give all 25. If the student gets 20 or more right, you're going to want to move on and give them the elementary spelling inventory, which is for grades 1st through 6th. And then discontinue if the student is visibly frustrated or misses 5 in a row. And then lastly is the upper level spelling inventory, which is used for grades 5 through 12. So those are the 3 different ones you can give. These are the steps you should follow for the spelling inventory. First, select the one you are going to give based on the student's grade and developmental level. Second, you would administer it as if you would a spelling test. It should take about 20 to 30 minutes unless the student becomes frustrated and you stop sooner. Have the student number their paper. You may want to prepare papers in advance for younger students. Pronounce each word naturally without drawing out sounds or breaking it into syllables. A lot of you guys saw with giving the poor phonological segmentation test, how hard it is to produce those multisyllabic words without enunciating the syllables. So you don't want to do that when giving a spelling test either. You want to produce the word naturally and don't draw out any sounds or break it into syllables, because that could skew your results and the reliability of those results. You say each word twice and use it in a sentence. You would want to circulate, but you're not giving it to a class, but make sure to monitor the student's performance. When you see signs of frustration, be prepared to stop. And then once you give the assessment, you would analyze it using a feature guide. So here is a sample. That would be the elementary spelling inventory, which was given to the student Jake. So as you can see, he did pretty well. The only long vowel sound he had a difficult time with was the IGH spelling for bright. You can see he's overgeneralizing that ending, or the E on the N. And you can see here with the two-syllable word, he's not doubling the consonant. So this would be the elementary spelling inventory. And then this is the feature guide that you would use to determine where you would provide instruction. So for the word bed, he had all three of those sounds, so you would just check them off. For ship, he had all three of those sounds, so you would just check them off. So pretty much you check off all the sounds that were present and then total them up by column. So he had 7 out of 7 consonants, 5 out of 5 short vowels, 6 out of 6 digraphs. So, and up here it tells you the spelling stages. So when the child misses 2 features from that section, that's where you would want to provide instruction. So here is his instructional level. This is his independent. This would be frustration. So he is in the late within word pattern stage. He had 9 words spelled correctly, but had 43 feature points for a total of 52 out of 87. So pretty easy to code and score. I'll show you another sample in a minute. A couple notes on scoring. Reversals should be noted but counted as the letter they were meant to represent. So a static reversal would be if they do a B backwards in bed, you still give them credit for that. A kinetic reversal would be if they put the letters out of order. You would give them credit for having those sounds, but they wouldn't get the point for spelling the word correctly. And then, like I said, instruction would begin where the student makes 2 or more errors on a given feature. So if you need some practice, you could print out the feature guide from Titanium and practice scoring these different students and see how they do. Here are the answers of the stages they fall in. Here is the sample I gave to my student. So being a first grade student, I actually started to give her the elementary spelling inventory, but then when I saw it went to digraphs right away, I was like, ooh, let's go back, and I gave her the primary spelling inventory and started to re-give that. She did a pretty good job with these CVC words. You can tell she hasn't learned the magic E, but she does know AI in weight, and then continued to make some more errors. As you can see, she made more than 5 errors in a row, but she wasn't getting frustrated, so I continued to give her 16 words. Actually, I would just do 15 for first grade unless they're doing extremely well. And then here is my student's feature guide, and I just indicated where I discontinued the assessment, but she had 7 out of 7 initial consonants, 7 out of 7 final consonants, which is very well aligned to how she performed on the phonics survey. She's getting those initial and final sounds, but sounds in the middle are a little shaky. In fact, she missed the short U and the short E and only got 5 out of 7 for short vowels, so she would be in the middle letter name alphabetic stage and would need more instruction with both of those. Also from there we would move on to digraphs, and then she missed a few blends as well, so we would want to go back and reteach some short vowels, make sure she gets digraphs and blends before moving into those long vowel patterns. So conclusions for orthography, like I said, she has a great grasp of consonant sounds and most short vowels, but we would need to further investigate her knowledge of short vowel sounds, especially the short U, because only one of the words, the word gum, has a short U sound on that assessment. So a limitation of that assessment is definitely a little bit of content validity, in that only having one CVC word with a short U may or may not be enough evidence to determine whether or not they've mastered that sound. But I know when comparing it to the core phonics survey, she does need that help with those short vowels. So I would want to provide her instruction for CVC words with short U and E, and then move into digraphs and blends. What does the research say? According to Cunningham, 2006, students who learn to look for patterns in multisyllabic words will be better spellers and decoders. Students learn word meanings from their reading, and both context and morphology are thought to account for a lot of their vocabulary development. Successful decoding occurs when the brain recognizes a familiar pattern, or if no familiar pattern exists, it searches through the store of words with similar patterns. So arguments in favor of Cunningham was a big proponent of making words activities to help students analyze and practice doing words with patterns. So interventions focused on polysyllable decoding have been shown to be highly successful, because you are drawing the student's attention to those different patterns. So what would be good interventions? Strategies like Words Their Way, which require students to analyze words and look for patterns. Providing explicit explanation, modeling, and think alouds in practice. Teaching students to ask, do I know any other words that look and sound like this word? Are any of these look-alike, sound-alike words related to each other? Also, teaching useful prefix, suffixes, and roots would be especially helpful for students moving into stage 4 syllables and affixes spelling. All right, I guess I'm going to attempt to get you through the QRI 5 word list in 3 minutes or less. So you want to see pages 40 to 47 of the QRI for more info. The actual word lists start on page 100. This is going to provide you a quick estimate of what level you should begin testing. This is not a graded sight word assessment, since all of the words on the word list come from QRI passages. So you cannot give the word list assessment and say, okay, they are on the instructional level of first grade. That means they're a first grade level reader. No, no, no. The results on the word list tell you, okay, I should start probably on the primer 2-3 level, because I want to find their independent level, and if they scored instructional on first grade, this is where I would start with the assessment. So the QRI word list just tells you where to start the QRI assessment, so you're not going in blind to that. So you give student the list of words and you ask them to pronounce them. You record the answers on the score sheet, differentiating between those automatically identified in 1 second or less and those identified with some delay. Page 42 has the prompt, has the script for you to follow for instructions to the student. So begin with the word list 2 or more grade levels below their grade. Keep track of accuracy and automaticity. Write down the phonetic equivalent of any mispronunciation. You use SC to indicate self-correct, DK for don't know, and C for correct. If it takes less than 1 second, then it's identified automatically, and then page 44 has some samples. So all you do is count the number identified automatically, and then ones that are just identified, and then the total number correct will tell you what passage level to start with to assess their reading level. So whatever list you start at, You want to go up until you hit frustration and go down in grade until you hit independent. So you should start with the passage at the student's independent level and then go up until you reach their instructional. So here is my student's work. You can see all the C's for correct, the DK over here for don't know. So pre-primer 2-3 is her independent level. This is where I would start giving the QRI assessment next week. I will start with pre-primer 2-3. If she gets independent on that, then I will give the primer and go up until I see her instructional level on the actual assessment. These were our objectives. I hope we met them. To launch you, here is a quote. Those who set out to remember every letter and every word will never make it. Those who try to spell by sound alone will be defeated. Those who learn to walk through words with sensible expectations, noting sound, pattern, and meaning relationships will know what to remember, and they will learn to